when Amal Clooney married George Clooney in a candlelit Venetian ceremony in 2014, the images traveled the world in minutes. The pairing felt cinematic and substantial at once. She was a celebrated international human rights lawyer whose docket included heads of state and cases before global tribunals. He was the Oscar-winning actor and director who had evolved from Hollywood leading man into one of the industry's most influential figures. Together, they projected a sense of balance, stylish, philanthropic, global. And for nearly a decade, their joint appearances seemed to confirm the world's assumptions about a modern marriage capable of withstanding intense scrutiny while doing tangible good. In recent months, that narrative has shifted. Reporting from multiple outlets, amplified by people close to the couple, has described an increasingly fragile private reality behind the public facade. What was once framed as compliment, his life in film and philanthropy, her work in international law, now appears to have become a fault line. The story of George Clooney and Amal Clooney today is no longer only about red carpets and legal victories. It concerns two high-performing professionals trying to reconcile divergent rhythms, competing obligations, and the pressures of raising young children while operating in the public eye. The core facts of their shared life are familiar. The couple married in Venice in September 2014, with a guest list that reflected their overlapping circles in entertainment, politics, journalism, and law. Over the next several years, they divided their time between Los Angeles, London, and the villa on Lake Como that has served as a base and a refuge for Clooney since long before the marriage. They welcomed twins, Ella and Alexander, and launched the Clooney Foundation for Justice, which created programs such as Trial Watch to shine light on legal abuses and the docket to support investigations into war crimes and other grave violations. Their brand, if that is not too cynical a term, merged star power with actionable causes, turning a famous surname into a fundraising engine for issues that rarely receive sustained attention. Even at the height of that synergy, there were hints of the balancing act required to make it work. George Clooney, though careful and selective in recent years, remains a director, actor, and producer whose projects can require months on location and a level of public engagement that few people, famous or not, ever experience. Amal Clooney, whose reputation was built case by case, sits at the center of a network that includes clients living under threat, academic institutions that rely on her teaching and thought leadership, and international bodies that solicit her advice on questions of law and accountability. Each partner's commitments are laudable, neither is parochial, but they pull in different directions and on different timelines. Sources close to the couple say that friction increased as the twins reached school age and as both careers escalated. George, now in his early 60s, has spoken in interviews about wanting to slow the pace of life, invest more time in his children's daily routines, and focus on creative work that does not require constant travel. Amal, entering arguably the most influential phase of her legal career, has been increasingly in demand in courtrooms and conference rooms across continents. She has been asked to take on cases with systemic implications, to co-author reports with global reach, and to lend her credibility to programs aimed at strengthening the rule of law. These are not casual obligations. They are the kinds of responsibilities that can alter policy and protect lives. The contrast between their professional ecosystems, Hollywood on one side, international law and diplomacy on the other, also appears to have created cultural dissonance inside the marriage. Friends of the family describe a pattern that will be recognizable to anyone who has tried to bridge worlds. George Clooney has always carried a lightness and warmth into rooms, preferring human connection over sermonizing, turning industry events into opportunities to build friendships. Amal Clooney, while personable and elegant in public appearances, inhabits a professional environment where stakes are literally life and death, where the language of filing can determine whether a client is safe, and where preparation is measured in thousands of pages and years of strategy rather than in a production schedule. Early on, the contrast made for an appealing narrative. It showcased two brilliant people complementing each other's strengths. Over time, the gulf reportedly widened. Insiders say that some of the most consequential disagreements centered on geography and routine. Where would the twins attend school? How would holidays be divided between Lake Como and Los Angeles? What would daily life look like when one parent had to be in The Hague while the other was prepping a film in New York or shepherding a project through post-production in London? According to people familiar with the couple's thinking, These practical questions were never merely logistical. They touched identity and purpose. Amal Clooney has long emphasized independence and professional clarity. Friends describe her as someone who, even in partnership, insists on the right to fulfill her vocation without apology. George Clooney, after decades of calling sets a second home, has grown more anchored in the domestic rhythms he once seemed to treat as optional. Neither stance is unreasonable. Both can be difficult to reconcile. The pressure of public expectation did not help. Few couples in modern entertainment have been asked to perform a marriage for the world quite like the Clooneys. Every detail, from Amal's courtroom-ready wardrobe to George's comments on politics, has been parsed with meaning. Innocent glances captured by photographers became fodder for online theories. This layer of commentary, while predictable, adds weight to intimate decisions. Sources in their circle say that the chore of being on at public events, even for a couple accustomed to publicity, began to feel like performance with little payoff. They felt evaluated more than seen. Over time, according to these accounts, that experience can make a relationship feel less like a partnership and more like a brand obligation. None of this should be mistaken for pettiness or ego. The pair's friends emphasize that foundational respect remains. George Clooney has never been shy about praising his wife's intellect and the seriousness of her work. He has told colleagues that watching Amal argue cases and build coalitions has been one of the most inspiring parts of his life. Amal Clooney, for her part, has never dismissed her husband's career as frivolous, and she has publicly noted the discipline, generosity, and craft that undergird his success. But love and admiration are not always enough to close distance created by divergent daily realities. On the economic side, the division of property and interests will be handled by seasoned legal teams working to preserve not only assets, but institutional commitments. The Clooney Foundation for Justice, which has grown in scope and profile over the past 8 years, has a board and staff structure designed to endure beyond any single personal transition. Donors, partners, and beneficiaries expect continuity. Early indications are that they will have it. For both George and Amal, the work has never been performative filler between premieres and lectures. It is woven into their identities. The question of how this moment will affect their respective careers is easier to answer. It will not, at least not in the ways casual viewers might assume. George Clooney has become more deliberate with each passing year about the projects he chooses, moving comfortably between directing and acting, between prestige films and thoughtful genre pieces. He does not need to chase work. If anything, this period may reinforce his inclination toward stories that reflect real human stakes and toward production models that allow him to be present for his children. Amal Clooney's calendar will remain as full as she wants it to be. Her responsibilities in international law will not evaporate because her personal life has changed shape. If anything, the independence she has fought to maintain may now be simpler to exercise. It would be a mistake to treat this news as a referendum on either person's character. Celebrity culture often demands villains and heroes where there are none. What appears to have happened here is something common and sad. Two strong people met at a moment when their lives were aligned, built something admirable together, and then discovered that the shape of their work and the shape of their days no longer matched. That recognition does not erase their shared accomplishments or their affection. It does not undo the public good their partnership has helped catalyze. It does call for a recalibration of expectations, not primarily for them, but for a public that has drawn comfort or inspiration from their example. In the comment sections of major outlets and across social media, the question most often posed is whether reconciliation remains possible. Friends of the couple say that time apart has a way of clarifying priorities. They caution against quick conclusions. High-profile relationships sometimes reconstitute, especially when both parties remain committed to the same core values and when children anchor their interactions. Even if the legal path moves forward toward finalization, estranged couples can find new ways to maintain family coherence and to support each other publicly. None of that changes the basic fact that something important has ended. It simply acknowledges that endings do not have to entail bitterness to be real. The other recurrent theme in public reaction is a feeling that another ideal has cracked. Fans remember the photographs from Venice, the footage from charitable galas, the interviews in which George Clooney gushed about his wife's brilliance, and Amal Clooney smiled as she described her husband's humor and generosity. Those memories are not illusions. They are part of the record of a marriage that did many things right. Their dissolution, if that is what we are witnessing, says less about hypocrisy and more about the difficulty of sustaining any marriage under extraordinary pressures. Editors and reporters have a role to play in shaping the tone of coverage. Responsible reporting on high-profile separations includes clear source attribution, skepticism toward rumor, and restraint in the face of speculation. The children's privacy matters. The couple's dignity matters. The line between curiosity and intrusion is easy to cross and hard to return from. The better coverage will focus on what is known, on what both parties choose to share, and on the broader context that makes a relationship like this one hard to maintain across decades. For those interested in the practicalities, geography will be a key variable. The twins' schooling and the location of their primary residence will shape schedules. Lake Como, long a sanctuary for Clooney, is unlikely to fall off the family map entirely. London will continue to be a base for Amal's legal work and for the foundation. Los Angeles remains a hub for Georgia production partnerships and for extended family and friends. How those coordinates are balanced will be a private calculation, but the outline is predictable. Steady routines with flexibility built in, travel when necessary, a premium on consistency for the children. The couple's circle appears to be holding. Hollywood friends and legal colleagues alike have offered support without exploiting the situation for attention. This is not always the case in high-profile breakups. The contrast suggests both a well-earned respect and a measure of fear, a recognition that, in an age of screenshot leaks and weaponized narratives, the best protection against misinterpretation is silence. Over time, the story will recede. Other headlines will take center stage. The Clooneys will reappear in public in new configurations, alone or with their children, in professional settings that will look much the same to outside eyes. The shock that some feel today will soften into a quieter acknowledgement that even the most photogenic marriages are still marriages. Subject fatigue, to misaligned expectations, to the wear of years. Yet, one should not miss the larger point. George Clooney and Amal Clooney used their visibility to advance discussions and causes that matter. They endowed scholarships, funded legal fellowships, stood with journalists under threat, and brought attention to the plight of those whose names rarely make it into feeds. That is what endures after a wedding album fades or a divorce filing is signed. Their combined legacy is not a hashtag, but a set of programs and precedents that continue to move a needle. If their partnership now evolves into a parallel track, the public can at least take comfort in the work that continues because of years spent together. For now, the line between confirmed fact and credible report remains clear. What is certain is that this is a painful period for a family that has done its best to navigate extraordinary lives with discretion. What seems likely, based on consistent reporting from those close to the couple, is that a decision has been made to formalize a separation. What is unknown is a timetable for a public acknowledgement and the precise terms of any agreement. What is appropriate for audiences and for the press is respect for a process being handled by two adults who have proven time and again that they value substance over sensation.